everything you need to know about a Ford Bronco Wildtrak Sasquatch Edition. The all-new Ford Bronco. The number one question that's on people's mind, is this a better Jeep Wrangler, or is this just an imitation or a wannabe Jeep Wrangler? Well, the answer is both, and quite frankly, I think Ford absolutely knocked it out of the park with the all-new Ford Bronco. You see, back in the 60s, we had the original Ford Bronco, which was a small, compact, go anywhere, do anything truck, very much like the old CJ, which is what it was on the market to compete against. There was also the International Scout being made at that time, and for over 12 years, America fell in love with the Ford Bronco. Some left them stock, some just drove them on the weekend, and some turned them into these really radical off-road rigs, and that was a formula that Ford did very, very well with. 1978 rolled around and Ford decided they were going to use the name Bronco on a full-size SUV. This was a ginormous two-door truck SUV type thing that was meant to compete against the K5 Blazer as well as the Dodge Ram Charger. Now, this version of the Ford Bronco ran all the way until 1996 when they completely killed off the Ford Bronco. It took 25 years for the Ford Bronco name to return, and Ford didn't rush into anything. They were brainstorming a return of the Ford Bronco since 2016. First, they teased it as a compact truck, much like the original Ford Bronco, and they even subtly snuck it into some movies like Jurassic Park, the one that had The Rock in it. Now again, fans did not like this version of the Bronco. So then they teased it out to the public as a two-door version of an F-150 with an SUV back, much similar to the second, third, fourth, and fifth generation Ford Bronco, but fans didn't like this either. So finally, they came up with this. That's right, a mid-size SUV between a compact and a full-size, and an SUV aimed to take it to Jeep Wrangler. A market that Jeep Wrangler has absolutely dominated for over 60 years finally had a competitor. That's right, a vehicle that could take the doors off, a vehicle that could take the roof off, a vehicle that looked different than anything else on the road, and Ford killed it. In the very first year they released the Bronco, they went toe-to-toe with Jeep on its sales numbers. Now, you might have think that this meant that Jeep sales numbers drastically declined, but they didn't. They stayed right there, and Ford just matched it, which meant twice as many people were driving off-road cool vehicles like this. Now, back to the original question, is this better than the Wrangler? Is it worse than the Wrangler? The answer is it doesn't matter, because even people who go buy Jeep Wranglers are buying them just to be different than everybody else on the road. And a Ford Bronco, if you're looking for something to turn heads and looks different than everything else on the road, well, you might have found your new vehicle, and I can't wait to tell you all about it.
I'm Jeff Batchelor, and I love cars. I love the look, I love the design, and I love the emotion that you feel. I love the history, brand stories, marketing strategy, and automotive trends. I love engineering, types of propulsion, engine specs, drivetrain, and performance, and I love the interiors, layouts, smell, and the gizmos and gadgets and bells and whistles. But I don't only love cars, I also sell them. If you love this content and want to chat about a purchase, text me at 416-523-6585. Now back to the video.
Okay, so now let's talk Bronco, a vehicle that I believe is and will be one of the most important vehicles that Ford has ever made, because it is bringing a whole new audience back to Ford. Ford is finally cool again. This is working wonders for Ford's marketing department because I don't think anybody got excited about the 7th facelift on a Ford Escape, or anyone was passionate about taking a Ford Explorer home or taking home a Ford F-150, which looks like every single F-150 that was ever sold. This is bringing new Ford buyers to a Ford showroom, and even if they can't buy the full-size Bronco, there's also a Bronco Sport, where they've taken the same design elements and thrown it on a compact version. So now in that name, we have a Bronco Sport, which is a compact version, doesn't share anything with this vehicle except for some design. Then we have a Bronco 2-door as well as a Bronco 4-door as two different size configurations that the Bronco has. And then if you want to talk about trim levels, we've got a ton of different trim levels, and they're all a little confusing. They didn't keep it basic like a Jeep Wrangler. So you've got some that are bare bones and the ones you'll find at a rental company. You've got some that have just some of the premium elements like leather seats but not the LED lights. And then you've got a premium one with LED lights, colored fenders, and then you get into all the off-road versions. This one, being the Wildtrak, is at the top of the food chain. And when you get a Wildtrak or any trim level with the Sasquatch package, that gives you better suspension, and it gives you these massive 35-inch tires that look so good. Now, when I started off talking about competitors, there's really only one company and one vehicle the Ford Bronco is aimed to go against, and that's the Jeep Wrangler. The Jeep Wrangler makes a manual 2-door version. The Ford Bronco comes in a manual 2-door version. The Jeep Wrangler has a 4-door ultra off-road beefy version. Well, the Ford Bronco has a 4-door off-road extra beefy version. And even so much, the Jeep Wrangler has a V8 powered 500 horsepower monster 392 version of a Jeep Wrangler. Well, Ford decided to Raptorize a Bronco, so we even have that there as well too. So there's only one clear competitor to the Bronco, and that's the Jeep Wrangler, and their sales numbers have been toe-to-toe for the last 3 years. Now, if you're wondering what powers your Ford Bronco, there's actually 3 engine options. The first is a 2.3-liter 4-cylinder EcoBoost that puts out just shy of 300 horsepower. The next option, which this one has, is a 2.7 6-cylinder EcoBoost engine, which puts out a little over 300 horsepower. And then at the top of the food chain, in the Raptorized version of the Ford Bronco, you can get a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 EcoBoost, which puts out 418 horsepower. Now, along with those power plants, you have 2 choices of transmissions. You can get a 7-speed manual, that's right, a Ford Bronco with a manual, or you get a 10-speed automatic transmission. I've driven both, and both of them are quite frankly fantastic. All right, now let's talk about exterior styling, and I'll say it once, and I'll say it again. I absolutely loved it. Ford absolutely nailed the exterior styling on this Ford Bronco, capturing all the retro cues of that first generation Ford Bronco, but actually making it bigger in proportion and a lot more imposing. When a Ford Bronco is parked next to a Jeep Wrangler, I can't lie, I'll take the Ford Bronco on looks only before a Jeep Wrangler, but I'll get into a few more pros and cons later in the video. Now, right up front, this takes a boxy looking SUV with round headlights, a look that people are absolutely in love with. It's why people buy Hummers, G-Wagons, Jeep Wranglers, and now the Ford Bronco. Not only did Ford use this boxy format with the round headlight designs, but they did an incredible job also outfitting this Bronco with the retro style grille of that old first generation Ford Bronco. Now, this Bronco in particular has had the Bronco script across the front grille upgraded to some LED lights that actually can shine in white or orange. But again, Broncos are going to be like Wranglers in terms of the fact that they're going to be very customizable and personalizable by their owners. Now, this also being a Wildtrak option has the steel powder coated bumper on the front, which is great for off-roading, gives you great approach angle and great access to those tires to the terrain. We've also got big, large, wide fenders that'll keep tree branches and things off of your factory paint. And another thing I love about these Ford Broncos is this up here. This is an attachment point where you can attach a wire from the front of your hood to the top of your windscreen. That wire is meant to keep tree branches and stuff away from your windscreen. Now, the other thing that I love about it is sitting in your Ford Bronco, you do not know how far away the front corner of your Bronco is. This works as a really great visual cue line to exactly where that front bumper ends. Just like if you were driving an old school Cadillac and it had those fins on the top corners, so you knew exactly where the end of your vehicle was, okay? Now alongside, these are the same design lengths from the original Ford Bronco, straight almost all the way to the back, and the little kick up, again, the retro cues, they did an incredible job with that. Now, as I mentioned, this Sasquatch edition has the HOSS suspension, so it's got upgraded Bilstein shocks underneath, plus it has these massive Goodyear 35-inch tires. Now, I didn't say Wrangler because Ford worked very hard to make sure that the tires they were going to put on their Bronco didn't say Wrangler. So this is a different type of off-road tire that doesn't have the word Wrangler anywhere on it. And then in between, we also have this beadlock style rim, which is also very popular and very attractive. Talking about exterior design as well, Ford had a long time of studying the Jeep Wrangler on how they could make a few things just a little bit better than the Jeep Wrangler. The biggest design thing they did differently than the Wrangler that people appreciate is where they put the mirrors. On a Jeep Wrangler, the mirrors are attached to the doors, which means when you take the doors off, you lose your mirrors. Well, Ford decided to make sure that the mirrors were actually attached to the hood or the A-pillar, so when you remove the doors, your mirrors still stay intact. A great job, Ford, integrating this into the design of the vehicle. Now, there's also very few things other than just the way the vehicle looks that'll identify this from the different trim levels. This Wildtrak edition has a matte black hood decal, which is meant to soak up the sun and remove the glare when you're driving through the desert with your Ford Bronco. But another thing is on all Ford Broncos, you have what looks like a sticker or a fridge magnet that displays what kind of Bronco you're in. Come on, Ford, do better. Now, like I said, there are a few things that Ford did way better than a Jeep Wrangler. However, there's a few things that they tried to be better and it actually backfired in it. Now, most people who own these Ford Broncos will agree with me, but Ford went with a frameless door window design, which is great because when you roll down the windows, the door's a whole lot smaller, easier to take off and store. In fact, you can even store all four doors in the back of your Bronco and take your doors with you, something you would never be able to do in a Jeep Wrangler. However, having a frameless window design on a large SUV with a great big window means that this window needs to travel quite a long way down before you can actually open it. What happens is when you open the door, you get this wobble shaking feeling, which really kind of gives you a bad taste in your mouth as far as the design quality goes. On top of that, sometimes your motor works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, let me show you the back rear door. The motor won't even go up and down at all anymore, and this is almost brand new. What you have to do is you literally have to push your window in and close the door simultaneously just to get a proper seal. Now, as we mentioned, this vehicle has been built to have removable doors and removable top, just like its Jeep Wrangler, brother, sister, whatever you want to call it. And taking the roof panels off is just as easy as the Bronco. Once you look underneath, you'll see 4 easy clips, and you can take the 2 panels off that are above the driver and the passenger. If you want to take the entire roof off, there's a toolkit, and with just a few bolts, you can remove the entire rear piece as well. Same thing for the doors. There's 2 bolts on the inside of the doors and 1 electrical clip, and you can take all the doors and roof off this Bronco in a matter of 20 minutes, no problem. All right, now let's talk interior of your Ford Bronco Wildtrak. Now, the biggest thing you're gonna notice as soon as you get inside this vehicle is that the quality of the materials is a little subpar. Everything has a scratchy, plasticky feel and sound. But again, if that's what you're looking for in a vehicle, you've missed the entire point. That's not what this vehicle is all about. The design of this interior has been very, very well done and was really well thought out. In fact, a lot of the things that I like about my Jeep Wrangler, the Ford has actually designed to be a little bit better. You see, even things like the doors, we talked about not having the frame on the door so that they're easy to store. Well, even the door pockets on the door are bigger than those of the Jeep Wrangler. Even though I don't think the seats are as nice as the Jeep Wrangler, the Bronco was the first one to come out with power seats, which was better than the Jeep Wrangler. And even things like the location of the off-road switches is easier to find and easier to access in the Ford Bronco. So although the quality of the materials might have you wanting a little bit more, the design and the execution of this interior is amazing. All right, now that we're on the interior of our Ford Bronco Wildtrak, just like they nailed the design on the outside, they also nailed the design on the inside, keeping a bit of a retro look with upright surfaces and rugged materials while also seamlessly integrating technology and all the creature comforts that you like. Now, the first thing you notice when you open the door is this great big rugged grab handles. Most vehicles would have that on the A-pillar, but the Ford Bronco has it right next to the steering wheel. Next, the steering wheel, you've got rubberized pads on the left and right side of the steering wheel, which again gives you that off-road rugged feel. You know that these pads are going to be easy to clean. On the left-hand side, we have all of our driver safety systems. In a Ford Bronco, you can not only get adaptive cruise control, but you can also get lane management. Very impressive to have this in an off-road vehicle, a feature that no Jeep Wrangler has. And on the right-hand side, you have a keypad to navigate through the large digital screen you have in the info cluster. Now, if there was something I was going to pick on, it would be the instrument cluster digital gauge, because it doesn't really configure the way that most people would like. So through the steering wheel, you've got this large digital instrument cluster, which on its comm screen displays a digital speedometer and a digital tachometer. The only customization you can really do is add a secondary screen that lays right along the right-hand side. Once you choose something to show up on the right-hand side, it pops in there, but again, this isn't a very exciting screen until we change the drive modes and we get the really exciting drive mode animations up here on our screen. As we move across the dash, we've got this great big large 12-inch Ford infotainment screen. This is Ford's latest infotainment screen, and quite frankly, it's great. You've got all your audio, phone, and navigation settings, very easy to find, very quick to pull up. You get a second screen on the right-hand side that is also very customizable to put a second piece of information on here. Again, the responsiveness is great, and Ford has done a great job with their infotainment screen. My favorite feature in this Ford Bronco is over here under zone lighting. That's right, this Ford Bronco allows you to turn on and off different lights all around the vehicle. This is really helpful if you are camping or you're setting up your campsite, or if you're just trying to work around your Bronco. Again, you can turn on and off different lighting elements around your vehicle, which can give you what they call zone lighting. Now, Ford has also left a physical button to be able to turn up your volume switch. And then one very important button that I feel like every vehicle should have is a quick access to your camera system. This vehicle has a fantastic 360-degree camera system, something, again, Jeep Wranglers do not have. I love being able to access that very, very quickly, whether I'm trying to park, pull out of a parking spot, maneuver my way through a trail. Having instant access to those cameras is amazing. And then down below, again, we've got physical buttons for your climate control, the ability to turn up the heat or turn down the heat very quickly, change the fan speed with a beautiful paddle, and directly access your heated seats and heated steering wheel. The only thing is these buttons are rather small, so I worry that in the wintertime when you're wearing big, thick mittens, you might not be able to press them as easily as you think. Now, moving our way down, we have a wireless charging pad, which has something unique that I've never seen before. It actually has a drain plug at the front, and it's actually slanted. So that way, if maybe you had mud or water or snow or something on your phone, that wireless charge pad is not going to accumulate the dirt and water. Now, the downside about this is this flat style wireless charging pad, as I was driving around, allowed my phone to move around quite a lot and disengage with the actual charging. So a little bit of a pro and a little bit of a con. We've also got this really nice Ford Bronco badge which shows where the Ford was made, and if you can catch the Easter egg in this, the two screws replicate the headlights on the front grille, and the line across looks exactly like the front grille of the Bronco. Sneaky little Easter egg there. All right, and now on to the coolest button or coolest dial in the entire vehicle, and that is the GOAT Modes dial. This is for goes over any terrain, and it is Ford's way to switch into the different drive modes of the vehicle. Now, every time you twist the knob, you get a different display up in the driver display, which is really quite exciting. So you first have your normal mode, which just shows a regular picture of the Earth. Once we switch it again, we have an eco mode, which shows a very green version of the Earth. The next setting is the sport mode, which shows an aggressively scorched volcanic Earth. I don't know how that symbolizes sport, but it's a pretty cool graphic to see up on the screen. Then we have a slippery screen, which shows the entire Earth being covered in water with a geyser spurting water. Pretty cool animation there. A mud and ruts page, which shows a very gnarly, rutty, muddy terrain to conquer. And then finally, we have our sand mode and our Baja mode. So again, some really fun and exciting drive modes in your Ford Bronco. Another thing Ford did really, really well was the location of their off-road switches as well as their auxiliary switches. I've always found these to be in a very awkward spot in a Jeep Wrangler, but in a Ford Bronco, they're right up here on the dash. The ability to lock the front locker, the rear locker, or even have your sway bar disconnect would all be located in a rubberized button panel up here on the dash. A little further back, there are screw mounting points for aftermarket accessories as well if you needed a phone holder or a GoPro holder. And to accompany that accessory screw hole, there's also even a USB power outlet up on the dash as well. Now, if we look up to the roof, this is where Ford has decided to put the auxiliary switches. It's a really cool feeling switching these switches right above your rearview mirror. Makes you feel like you're an 18-wheeler or a big rig. But again, I love where Ford put the location of the off-road switches and their auxiliary switches. And while we're on the topic of the roof, Ford decided to put carpeting on the entire roof panels. I think it was meant to make it have a more luxurious feel. I think it actually makes the area feel a lot darker and tighter in here. Now, this is also where you find your clips to unlock your Freedom Top panels so you can easily remove your roof at any time. All right, now I mentioned how much I love the design, the layout, and how big and huge the front seat feels. Well, I don't feel that way about the back seat. In fact, the back seat of this Bronco Wildtrak edition feels very cramped and very stuffy. Bronco decided to put the carpeting all over the roof, which I'm sure helps with noise dampening, but it makes it feel really dark and claustrophobic back here in the back. As well as the rear seats sit almost straight upright, which may be comfortable for a small period of time, but I'm sure anybody in the back seat on a long ride or on a trail ride is going to be feeling it in the morning. Now the rear seats do fold down, which is very handy because now you can have access to the cargo area from the back seat, or you can fit extra large objects back here. But another design flaw of this vehicle is the fact that there's no flat surface. People who have Jeep Wranglers, and I'm imagining Broncos, are probably going to want to sleep and camp in their vehicles, and the Bronco doesn't give you any sort of flat surface to lay out comfortably in the back of the vehicle. All right, and as we make our way around to the back, the Ford Bronco looks exactly the way you expect an off-road SUV to look, okay? We've got our large spare tire on the back, and if you were driving behind this Ford Bronco, you'd probably think that you were driving behind a Jeep Wrangler. Now, a nice thing that Ford has done is they made these big, tall, vertical taillights that when they're actually lit up, they actually make the letter B, a really nice Easter egg there from Ford. Now, the Ford Bronco also employs a swing-style tailgate, but another great design that Ford thought of was actually putting a piston actuator on the tailgate. This allows you to be able to set it in a number of different positions so it's not free-flowing and flies open like it would on a Jeep Wrangler. As well, this actuator allows this tailgate to open much larger than 90 degrees. Not sure the benefit of that, but it is another differentiation from the Jeep Wrangler. And then as you see this area, it looks very, very large, easy to pack a cooler and some tents and some plies on here. I don't know the exact measurements to know if this is bigger or smaller than a Jeep Wrangler, but it looks very adequate and there's a lot of space. Now there are a few other nice Easter eggs in the back of your Ford Bronco, like these tie-down hooks actually are accented with the logo of a lasso. Get it? Tie down a Bronco? All right, so if you're considering a Ford Bronco for your next vehicle, there is a lot to love about this vehicle. It does off-roady things like or almost better than a Jeep Wrangler. It looks wild and radical, like or almost better than a Jeep Wrangler. It has great technology, great comfortable and removable roof and doors, just like a Jeep Wrangler. But if you're in the market for something that is high-end, something sophisticated, something that's safe, something that's quiet, and something that's luxurious, that's not something you're going to get in either of them. In fact, Ford did such a good job putting this thing to market and getting everybody excited about it that there are a few things in terms of build quality you won't be too excited with. But that shouldn't matter. You've got something different, bright, loud, and exciting to drive, and that's the reason you get a Ford Bronco.